there, and welcome for some Amulet Titan content. Absolutely want to play first. This hand is kind of garbage, so let's mull it. We're on the play here. I mean, I have Azusa, I have Titan. This hand isn't particularly good. 3, 4. We're looking at a turn 4 prime time. There's no Amulet, there's no Once Upon a Time, there's no Stirrings, but even if I just draw lands off this hand, it's fine. I think I'm just going to keep this. It's okay. There's nothing spectacular about this hand. And without any blue sources, I'm just going to bottom the Pact of Negation. I'm like so far away from being able to cast that spell. My first play is going to be Field of the Dead. It's either Field or Forest. I think I want to go with Field just to get the tap land out of the way. It does give my opponent a little bit more information. Unfortunately, we're set up in a spot where I can't really, if they have Path, they actually get to get me here. I only get one extra land drop, but I don't even mind if my opponent paths me here. That's fine. I want my opponent to tap out here. Because I have a ton of lands in hand and I have prime time, I want them to Field of Ruin a land here. I'll get the snow covered. Not representing a plains here means they don't have a path. So we right now have, that's 4 mana, 5 mana, 6 mana, prime time, and now we're just really far ahead here. So I kind of baited my opponent into fielding if they had it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 differently named. So if I grab 2 lands that have different names than any of these, I start getting zombies. So important things for me to grab would be Cavern of Souls and probably Tolaria West. I'm also interested in a bounce land here. We got Tolaria West and Simic Growth Chamber. I think is actually by far the best thing I can grab. So even if my opponent has the Path to Exile, I'm just going to start getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zombies off of each path, snap path, and I have another pact here to try to take care of anything else they need. That's fine. I left that exposed because I am running, inspired by Punt's list, I am running 2 Field of the Dead's main board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. Now I have a way to protect my Titan from a path. I don't know why opponent let me go to attack here. Yeah, that just seemed... That was just poor sequencing from my opponent there. So post board, we get access to a few different things. We get access to Ghost Quarter, Cavern, Bog, Disdainful Stroke. Reclamation Sage could be something I'm interested in bringing in. Ramanop definitely is. And then if we want, we even have extra threats. So one thing I've learned playing against blue-white control is that Oko's pretty weak. Oko's pretty weak in this field. I actually thought of... So when I originally put Oko in the deck, I was like, oh, he's good against everything. I like him against aggro. He gains me life. Yeah, I like him against mid-range, obviously, which is where he's good against. I even like him against combo decks sometimes, like against Infect and Devoted Druid creature combo decks. It can just be an absolute deal breaker. And against Control, it's a card that every other turn gives me a 3/3 creature. It's kind of like a bad Garruk Primal Hunter. That's not the way it plays out at all. And honestly, the 3/3 every turn didn't even matter. Or every other turn didn't even matter against my control opponent, as it just buried me in Terminuses and things like that. So cards I'm less interested in here. Engineer Explosive is okay. Oko is a clear cut. I mean, Ghost Quarter is just, it's okay here. It's not like my absolute favorite card, and I really don't want to go to 32 lands either. I guess I could cut a couple castles here. Radiant Fountain's out. What I did find is that bringing in the Baloths instead of some other things actually is decent against control because it's a much bigger threat than something like Oko. It's not wonderful, but it's just something else my opponent has to kind of deal with. I might even want this Chameleon Colossus over the Amulet, to be honest. We can do something like that. This hand's fine. I got Once Upon a Time to find me a bounce land, and I have a turn 2 Azusa. That's good. We'll keep this. Opponent didn't even let us show them the second Field of the Dead main board, but we were going to grab a Field of the Dead and start going off again. Field of the Dead probably bounce land, then just keep kind of going from there. It's a bit unfortunate. Let's grab the Bog. Bog's not bad here, just not a bounce land. Okay. I think with that, then I'm just going to play Field of the Dead, pass, and then Once Upon a Time, my opponent's end step. Damping Sphere also hurts their own Snapcaster mages. Opponent topped with the Opt. So I still need, even though Damping Sphere does hurt my bounce lands, I still just need lands. I can either grab a Secure Tribe Scout because that's really good, or I can just start grabbing bounce land just to try to get through my deck here. No Field of Ruin up, so I'm just gonna try to progress my mana a little bit. Azusa can negate the downside of the bounce here against Damping Sphere. Knowing my opponent has Damping Sphere, which I think is just an odd inclusion in a control deck. Definitely going to bring in Reclamation Sage post board, and might even reconsider Oko. Oko being able to Damping Sphere is one of the best things about Oko. Like post board. Opponent debating something here. Okay. Zeus is getting me more lands. Let's make sure you get a different name here. One, two, three, four, five. So I'm still a couple turns off from casting Primetime. Means I'm sequenced into playing Bog next and then Simic Growth Chamber. It's a bit rough. Opponent's tapped out, no fetch lands. Seems like a prime opportunity just to bog them. Now I could Summoner's Pact for a threat here. Put it in play. Then my opponent's just going to Jace minus bounce it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I could grab, pay 1 for the Damping Sphere, grab a Chameleon Colossus, put it in play. But then next turn I'm kind of just tapped out, not doing anything, so... Really wish I grabbed the Selesnya bounce land here, just to start having different names with this Field of the Dead. Gemstone Mine would be a great draw. Playing the Bailout first because my opponent kind of has to spend their mana anyway, and obviously they've been brainstorming every turn, so they're going to have an answer at this point. So just get through a Cryptic, use the Bailout for it. I get to bog my opponent next turn to get rid of it. Okay. Weird sequencing. They chose to draw the 3 before putting the Cryptic on top. Means they probably just wanted to get rid of 2 cards as opposed to guaranteeing they had the Cryptic in hand. play the Tolaria West instead of the Bog there, because I need blue sources to actually use the Tolaria West, so my second one will probably be better than my first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Already have field. Let's get a cavern. And what else am I interested in? Probably a breeding pool. Either a breeding pool or a gemstone mine. I think breeding pool just might be a little bit better at the moment. I could have just grabbed a bounce land and then bounced the cavern back to my hand, but my opponent doesn't have a field in play yet. They might be hiding one in their hand, but I do have a second cavern, so I can play around it a little bit. Yeah, it's probably optimal just to get a bounce land there. I'm just looking to get extra blue sources to turn Tolaria West on. Like right now, if my opponent invests mana getting rid of this cavern, I will get, like, which should they get rid of, the field or the cavern? I don't know what they would get rid of there. Depends on their hand. If they get rid of either, I can then blue, get this, play that, buy it back, and then get another copy of whichever one they get rid of. So we know about a cryptic in their hand. Okay, there's the field. Yep. I think they wisely assess that the Field of the Dead's the stronger card here. Okay, that cleans up my zombie horde. And they're holding up Cryptic. No fetch lands, so I can play Bog when I want. I think I want to play Titan and get Ramanop to buy this back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana. That would cost 6, 7. Oh, that would cost too much mana. I can't do both. Guess I can play Ramanop next turn. Let's get a field and another cavern, I think. What is Ramanop's text? Naga Cleric. Okay, so let me rethink this. I have Pact, which will cost 1. Then I have to, yes, I actually have enough mana here. So let's do that right now. Pact for the Excavator. Oh, 1 mana short. I have to pay it, huh? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. I guess it costs 2 more. Yep, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm off by 1 mana unless I play the land, but I want to actually activate them the same turn I use them. So I think I'm just going to bog here and pass. There's no point in playing Excavator if I can't also just get that Field of the Dead back the same turn. And now if my opponent kills my Field of the Dead, I'll just use the Cavern on Naga to buy it back, and if they kill my Cavern on Naga, then I still have a field in play, so it's a win-win either way. If they kill the Cavern on Giant, then I'll just bounce it back and replay it, or play Naga and then buy that back. So I'm in an okay spot here. They can Detention Sphere my zombies away, can Detention Sphere my prime time away, but no, it's not painful. Narset does nothing against me. Actually, I think it's a card that should probably side out against me, to be honest. Unless they're using it just as a tool to dig for path, which is okay, I guess. I'm notably not going to Tolaria West for Pact of Negation because my opponent's got too many darn cards in hand. I just don't think it'll ever do much. I don't think it's going to do anything. Smart opponent would name Zombie here off of the Runed Halo. Actually, they can't. It has to be a card name, so I have to name Primetime. So Runed Halo, you can't name a token. Zombie is not a card. Zombie is a card token. Or a token card. Token card. So my list itself, I was inspired by, this is not it. I was inspired by Punt and Wine's winning list by having the 2 Field the Dead main, and by the return of the Khalni Garden. What I didn't like is I didn't like the lack of Castle. I still think Castle is worth running, so I am spreading myself a little bit thin for those castles. Oko is just kind of just a flex spot. Instead of the Explorer, I'm running an Oko. But I was inspired by the 2 Field the Dead's main, and I kind of really liked that approach. I do have a simpler sideboard that is more open for an open meta than what Punt was expecting. But I still think Castle's a very powerful Magic card. Not as good in this matchup because I don't need the extra mana. What Castle lets you do is Castle lets you win without Amulet. It's kind of like extra bounce lands. Opponent discards Surgical. That's interesting to me. Let's go to combat. Yeah, I can't do much about that. Okay. I want to shuffle my deck because Ramanap was at the bottom, so let's do that. Let's take out Teferi. Teferi's close to winning. Also at Teferi, also at Teferi, at Jace, at Jace. So if they block here, Teferi's dead. And I want Jace to die too. So before I get Slayer's Stronghold, I want to be able to use it, because right now I don't have any red or white mana. I don't really know what my opponent's doing here. Like, Primetime's got Trample. They can't cast any more spells because of their own Damping Sphere, so they're just losing their Planeswalkers here. I don't really care about the Runed Halo at the moment. Something for me to consider is not... Oh, actually, just straight up right now, I'm going to get back my Cleric. I've not played a land for turn, so let's go Naga, 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 and then pay for Damping Sphere. And buy back that Field of the Dead. Keeping a bounce land in my hand so I can make 2 zombies every single turn for the rest of the game. It's fine. Opponent doesn't need a Terminus because they have the Tension Sphere, which can wipe them out with my zombie count. A good card for me to draw would be a Scout or an Azusa. I think I'm absolutely in a fine spot right now. I cut 1 Summoner's Pact, right? Yep. So I have 1, 2, 3. I have 1 more left in my deck. And I have 1 more Titan. 1, 2, 3. 2 more Titans, sorry. No, just 1 more. Yep, there's the Tension Sphere. It's gotta target a zombie there. Just fine. My opponent has to do that to keep from dying. But they also completely tap themselves out here. Sure. The only thing they could cast was Path there that I really cared about. And now I'm in a spot where the Blue Pact could be a little bit better because my opponent is running out of resources now. This has to go at Jace, and I have no desire to trade here, so... Now I can grab Slayers, and I can start going from there. Or I can just Vesuva, copy Field, and make even more zombies, basically threaten to take over the game every single turn. I kind of like that. And let's bounce. I don't know why... I guess the only reason my opponent didn't attack there was just to have this block here. But that block just saves him 2 life. They would be winning that race. There's no need to play the prime time from my hand because that just opens me up to my opponent potentially blowing me out. Like, what do I need in play? Like, I'm threatening lethal every single turn with triple Field the Dead right now. Okay, opponent taking a path. Can kill that next turn. I don't think it's worth pacting. It's basically just a fog that bought my opponent a turn. Like, it didn't do too much else. Yep. Now let's get the free shuffle. Mm-hmm. Yep, there's no reason not to attack. Let's attack to Fairy here. There is a Field of Ruin in play. I'm going to grab a Khalni Garden and a Sunhome. Sunhome will kind of be bait. Doesn't actually do anything. It's a Slayer Stronghold that I'm interested in with the zombies. I don't know why they're snap opting here when I feel like snap path is the better line. Because if my opponent likes my mana, I can't actually cast Pact Negation while their Field of Ruin is untapped. But they topped there. Swinging for 3. It's got to be a Cryptic. It's the only thing that keeps my opponent alive. Do they have Force of Negation? Because if they have Force of Negation, I can get blown out right here. I don't think they do. Taking a risky line here. This should attack the Narset. Doesn't do much else. And attack them. Okay. So up against blue-white control, 2 Field of Dead's main was pretty nice. Having 2 Cavern I feel like has been good so far. Mystic Sanctuary is the only real card that scares me out of that deck. It's Field and Mystic Sanctuary. It's their mana base that really kind of pushes us behind. So that's something that I'm pretty happy with. Hoping you guys liked it. I like this list. Chameleon Colossus feels like a must right now. I got to tune a little bit. I feel like I do want a third EE, but 3 Dismembers seems very important in certain matchups, so I still like that. Like, that's how you win against Ink Moth, Nexus, or any Infect card, and Devoted Druid. So, haven't played Primetime on video for a little bit, so I wanted to do that. Also, I wanted to show this new mana base off, which I'm pretty excited about. So squeezing that second Field of Dead in there, which is completely punt and wines, having 2 field main. I don't think I'd seen any. Someone else might have done that before, and that Return of the Khalni Garden, which is something I really, really like in a Death Shadow meta. Not having that Khalni Garden can kind of blow you out. Basically now Death Shadow needs TBR. It's TBR or bust for them, because Khalni Garden and then eventually Field can just kind of wipe them out. It's always kind of been that way, but once we cut Khalni Garden, I felt like the matchup dropped 10% right there, and that's just not something. It's a free card in your deck that you can just run. It's a little bit more painful with Castle Garenbrig, because that could be another breeding pool, could be anything, but it's not. It's a Khalni Garden, which is strangely not a forest. I feel like if they printed Khalni Garden now, it'd be a forest, just based on the power level of the lands they've been printing recently. But that's a deck. That's a video. I still think Oko main is good. Again, against Death Shadow, against Infect, against Druid, against any aggro deck. It's just not that great against Control, and this is a matchup against Control, so I didn't really get to see Oko shine there. But at Regionals, SCG Regionals, Oko won me the day against Infect, and that was absolutely fantastic. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.